From Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard.
Aloha, Salem.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you very much, Larry. It's been great to be on the road with him all day here. We started in Portland, stopped in Eugene, and now to close out strong here in Salem. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight to show your support for Bernie. Mahalo.
Yeah!
Everywhere that I've gone with this campaign, I've begun every single rally, every single remarks with aloha. And there's a reason for that. I'm very proud to represent Hawaii in Congress.
Yeah!
Got a couple of local people in the crowd here.
Yeah!
But the real meaning of aloha is something that's very powerful that I want to share with you. And it speaks to what Larry just talked about courage and a willingness to stand up and fight for what's right. Aloha is a word that means more than just hello or goodbye. It's a word that in its deepest meaning means love. It means respect. It means compassion. So when I aloha you, it means that I come to you with an open heart. It speaks to the breath of life that unites us all. When you go to Hawaii and you see Native Hawaiians greet each other in the traditional way, you will see them hold each other's shoulders, touch foreheads and noses, close their eyes, and take a deep breath. Because aloha means to share that breath of life, to recognize that we are all equal, we all stand on common ground, we are all connected as part of this great, beautiful, diverse family. And that's what this campaign is all about. It's standing together, fighting for what is right, linking arms, and focusing on that bright future, focusing on that very special thing that unites us all. And that's what makes me so proud to be a part of this campaign, to be a part of this fight. This fight to take government back from the very wealthy, the very powerful, and the very few, and bring it back into the hands of the people where it belongs. To push back against those who are frustrated, who are disconnected, who are disenfranchised, who feel that their government and representatives have left them behind. To remind people about what this really is. To talk about public servants. To talk about servant leadership. And remember those famous words that Abraham Lincoln spoke in 1863, where he talked about how this nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from earth. This is this great proposition and promise that's before us, and it speaks to what is at stake in this election. For every single one of us. For you, you have your ballots in hand, you understand the power and the responsibility that you carry, but it extends beyond that single action you will take yourself to cast that vote. It extends to you to look in the mirror and say, what more can I do? What more can I do as an individual to change the path that our country is on, to bring about this new kind of leadership that we expect, that we deserve, and that we demand. There are so many different issues that Bernie speaks about, that Larry has spoken about, that we've heard from other speakers about, that matter deeply to each one of us. That we stand in solidarity with our working brothers and sisters. That we fight for their right to collective bargaining, to earn a living wage. That we recognize this disappearing middle class and work together to lift people up out of poverty and work together towards that promise of a brighter future. Now today, we've heard from some very special people, and we've got a lot of veterans here in the crowd today. I'd like you to just give them a hand and express your gratitude, our gratitude for their service. Now you heard from someone named Valdez Bravo, who's an Army veteran and who's part of Vets for Bernie. I just want to say, how cool is his name? Sergeant Bravo. I mean, come on. That's a superhero right there. Valdez brought up some real issues, though. He really brought it home when he talked about the cost of war and who is paying the bill on that cost of war. I got a text message late last night from a friend of mine who I went through officer training with, who's deployed more times than I can count, an Army infantryman. And he told me that his father, who's also a veteran, one of his soldiers had just committed his suicide last night, taken his own life. Gone through and served in combat numerous times, survived, came home, and yet could not withstand the challenges that he suffered through. He is unfortunately and sadly just one of too many every single day in this country who take their own lives. What are we doing about it? What is our country doing about this? Men and women who raise their hands and voluntarily put their lives on the line only to come home and take their own life. Bernie Sanders is someone who has done something about this, who has promised to continue this fight. Throughout his career, he has sponsored and co-sponsored over 64 pieces of legislation that directly serve and take care of our veterans, service members, and their families. As Valdez talked about, he passed historic legislation focused on taking care of and honoring our veterans and reforming the VA. Most recently, he came out against these current attempts in Congress to peel back benefits in the post 9/11 GI Bill, breaking yet another promise to our veterans, taking another leadership role when other members of Congress have shrunk in the shadows, not bringing to light what they were doing. I think veterans are used to people saying thank you for your service, but unfortunately they've become used to politicians who say thank you for your service and then turn their backs and take away their benefits. Bernie has shown through his actions, he has shown through his record and his promise of the kind of commander-in-chief he will be, that not only will he honor veterans when they come home, but he will be the kind of commander-in-chief who has the judgment and foresight to know that sometimes military power may be necessary to keep the American people safe. But he knows that just as important is making that decision when not to use military power. The fact that Bernie has exercised this good judgment in the past and has shown through the positions he's taken that he will do as commander-in-chief are what convinced me that he is the right person to take on this role, this most important job that our president has as commander-in-chief. It's why I resigned from the DNC as vice chair to endorse him to be our next president and commander-in-chief, because this is what signifies the high stakes that we're facing.
Thank you, Tulsi.
When I looked at the two candidates that we have in our Democratic primary, I saw very clearly the contrast between the two. Bernie has made it clear time and again that he will not waste our precious resources, our precious treasure, on continuing these unnecessary interventionist wars of regime change. He has promised instead to use those resources right here at home, to rebuild our infrastructure so we don't face situations like the families in Flint, Michigan are facing, where people are being poisoned every day by failed infrastructure and dirty water. He's promised that in investing in education, in investing in our future, in preserving Social Security, in keeping our jobs here at home, investing in our economy, and fighting tooth and nail against these destructive trade deals that benefit the very few and these multinational corporations, literally on the backs of our working families. On the other hand, Secretary Clinton has shown us clearly, through her decisions in the past and what she promises in the future, what kind of commander-in-chief she'll be. Beginning with her vote for the Iraq War, her leading the effort towards the military overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, an action that has resulted in a completely failed nation, chaos, tremendous loss of life, and now ISIS having a stronghold in that country that didn't exist before. And now with this current, yet again, another unnecessary regime change war occurring in Syria. Not only has she promised to continue it, she promises to escalate it by implementing a no-fly zone, something that Bernie, President Obama, Vice President Biden, Pentagon leaders, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff have all opposed because they recognize that this action would pit the United States again into perpetual and endless war at tremendous cost. There's a lot to be said about leadership. And I think that we owe it to our nation's sons and daughters, the veterans who are present here today, and to these young people, to our future, to recognize how important it is that we elect the right person as president and commander-in-chief. The right person who will work hard to make sure that they put the people first. So as we head into elections here in Oregon, with the ballots that you have in your hands as of today, get those ballots in early. Don't wait until the last minute. Get your friends and your neighbors, your coworkers, your family, everyone to do the same. Because we can send an incredibly powerful and strong, boisterous message to the country, to all of those who say that this election is over, to all of those who say that the votes from here on out really won't make a difference. We have to send this message to the nation and to the world about the kind of leadership that we expect and we demand for us, in our country, and for our future. It is truly in our hands. Speaking of one-of-a-kind leaders, we have 100 senators in the U.S. Senate. Bernie is out there doing the good work. We have one out of the remaining 99 who has courageously taken the stand, shoulder to shoulder with Bernie Sanders, speaking out in support of his bid to be our next president and commander-in-chief, championing democracy, bringing the people's voices to Washington, speaking for those who have no voice. It's my privilege to be in his and your beautiful state. Please welcome your U.S. Senator, Jeff Merkley.
Great to see you. Let's wave those Bernie posters out. Hold them high, wave them high. There we go. All right. This is a rally. This is about changing the direction of our country. Thank you so much for being engaged citizens coming out to make a difference. Now, Tulsi came a long ways from Hawaii to help campaign here in Oregon. And I tell you, she is a very special woman. She's one of the very few members of women in Congress who have served in combat. She is the first individual from American Samoa to serve in Congress. And she is our champion for Bernie. Let's give it up one more time. You know, this is all about us taking back our democracy. And our democracy vision is laid out in those first three words of the Constitution, and those words are? We the people. What is it? We the people. We the people. You know, the founders, when they wrote the Constitution, they put those three words in supersized print, and then they gave the rest. They wanted to say, you know, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, people look at the Constitution, they go, oh, that's what it's all about. It is not we the powerful. It is not we the privileged, it is we the people. In fact, Jefferson called it the mother principle. He said we can claim to be a republic only to the degree that the decisions of government benefit the will of the people. And he said that key to that is that the citizens have an equal voice. And what he envisioned was here at a community square when people are campaigning, everyone has a chance to make their case. But something happened along the way. And what happened is the community square became television and radio, and those cost a lot of money. And then you have this decision, Buckley versus Vallejo, 40 years ago, that took the cap off what rich individuals could spend. And then Citizens United, that took the cap off what corporations can spend. In other words, our democracy is now up for sale. And that means it's been stood on its head, and we the people has become we the powerful. But this campaign is about taking our nation back. Let's do it. You know, when you have a we the people government, the government serves the people. And let me ask you, is the government serving the people when it does trade deals that send our jobs overseas? No! How about when every year Congress enacts big subsidies to big oil? No! Or how about when women only earn 72 cents for the same job that men do? No! Or when our children have to incur a debt the size of a mountain in order to get the education they need to pursue their dreams? No! Mass incarceration that drains our budgets and damages so many lives? No! And I'll tell you, it's very personal to me, and I so much appreciated Margot Black's comments about housing, because I spent years working with Habitat for Humanity and developing housing and starting individual development account programs that would enable people to buy homes. What we have right now is the wealth of America collectively is going up, 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 and the homeless population is going up, up, up. What is wrong with that picture? How is it that affluent America is squeezing the middle class into basically the streets where people have to live on the sidewalk? That is just wrong. We have to change that. There should be a decent home and a decent community for every single American family. Now, here's the problem. For 30 years after World War II, Americans, all who worked to build the wealth of America, they participated in the wealth. And there's a huge change in standard of living over those 3 decades. And we all thought that would continue. You know, it's 1945, 1975. Then 1975 to now, 41 years, 4 decades. Guess what? 100% of the new income has gone to the top 10%. That's in America. That leaves 9 out of 10 individuals out in the cold. That is not we the people democracy. How about an America that brings 10 out of 10 out of the cold into the community and helps them prosper? Now, these trade deals have been designed to benefit wealthy multinational corporations so they can make stuff in the cheapest place in the world. Lowest labor standards, lowest environmental standards, lowest enforcement, and they can sell it at the world price. Okay, that's great if you own a multinational corporation. Anybody here own one? Well, okay, maybe a few shares here or there of stock, but here is the underlying fact that if you do that, you lower labor, you lower environment, you take those jobs, you ship them overseas, and you undermine the success of millions of families because there is no government program that can substitute for a living wage job. We want those jobs back. Yeah! You may have just heard that one more company, Carrier, is shipping their manufacturing to Mexico because it's a lot cheaper to make things there because of the low wages, low environmental standards, and low enforcement. You may have heard that there is a strike. We heard from Larry Cohen about the issues that are being raised with Verizon and Verizon shipping jobs to call centers overseas. I'd like to call an American call center when I have problems with my cable or my web. Bernie gets this, and he gets the fact that we have to stop burning fossil fuels if we're going to save our planet. Now, we see here in Oregon the impact of global warming as much as anywhere. We see it in the red forest, the red zone of the trees that are being killed by pine beetles because it's not cold enough to kill the pine beetles in the winter. We see it in the fact that we've had the droughts in the Klamath Basin, 3 worst ever droughts in a 15-year period. We see it by the fact our oysters on the coast are having trouble reproducing because the ocean is 30% more acidic now because the carbon dioxide becomes carbonic acid than it was before we started burning coal. So we see it in place after place after place, and we are the generation that's experiencing this. We have to be the generation to take a fast pivot from fossil fuels to renewable fuels, and in the process, create millions of jobs. It's a win-win. Bernie Sanders was there on the Keystone Pipeline. He understood that we shouldn't turn the faucet on to the dirtiest fossil fuels on the planet. He was there, he supported my bill on ending the drilling in the Arctic. And then I put forward a bill called Keeping the Ground. Keeping the Ground. You and I, as citizens, we own a lot of coal, a lot of oil, a lot of gas. Maybe you hadn't thought of it that way, that you are participating as an owner of a vast reserve of fossil fuels. Well, the public good for what you and I own is to keep it in the ground.
That's right. Yeah.
So I called out Bernie. I said, we're going to announce a Keeping the Ground bill that says all of our citizen-owned should be left in the ground, no new leases. And he said, I'll be there. And he was there. That's the type of leadership we need. And he understands the point that Tulsi is making, that we're misspending our resources. $100 billion a year on the war in Afghanistan, a war badly conceived. The war in Iraq, the war in Syria. Well, here's the thing. Think about what $100 billion would do if 30 billion went to education, and 30 billion went to infrastructure, and 30 billion went to reducing the debt.
Yeah.
I really appreciate Bernie taking on the role of campaign cash. Now, we saw in the 2014 election, not long ago, we saw the Koch brothers spend an enormous sum of money. And they spent that money on Senate races because they wanted to control the U.S. Senate. And here's what happened. They won in Arkansas. They won in Louisiana. They won in North Carolina. They won in Iowa. They won in Colorado. They won